Behind the Middle Belt killings is Caliphate ethnic cleansing. Behind Niger Delta agitation is Caliphate seizure of oil and gas. Behind Biafra and Odua agitation, Caliphate imposed unitary Nigeria. Behind the Caliphate itself is the rogue 1999 Constitution. Election is Caliphate's push to retain the 1999 fraud. Nigerians, say no to any further election in the country. Let's take down the 1999 Constitution and save our people and our land.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's Joint Nina's Town Hall meeting on Clubhouse. We're glad you could join us tonight to talk about 1999 Constitution, its victory charter from 1967 to 1970 genocide, and must now be decommissioned to end that war. Today's meeting features a broadcast interview with Alex Obodo of Afia TV and Tony Nina, the spokesperson for the Ninas movement. Because in course of the week, Peter Obi was under fire for congratulating Gowon amid Igbo genocide controversy. Let's listen and invite the Nina spokesperson afterwards to provide additional insights. Thank you for listening.
The lingering emotions and post-war trauma from the Nigeria-Biafra conflict persist, particularly for those who suffered significant losses. The recent congratulatory message from P2B, former Labour Party presidential candidate, to former head of state General Yakubu Gowon on his 90th birthday has sparked debate. Specifically, it raised questions about whether Gowon, who oversaw the 1967 to 1970 war, should apologize to Igbo for their experiences in one of Africa's most devastating genocidal wars. Well, we'll find out, because this is the Eastern Eye, and I'm Alex Obodo. The Eastern Eye here on Afia TV, the program that x-rays the political, social, and economic developments around us. Tonight, I'm joined by Tony Nadi Esquire. He is the Secretary General, Lower Niger Congress, and co-convener of the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, NINAS. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me tonight on the Eastern Eye.
Thank you. Welcome, viewers.
I'm sure you already know the backstory to this. I mean, P2B congratulated God on his 90th birthday, and lots of things were written. But a lot of people, especially from the Southeast, took exception to his write-up, insisting that it was against the spirit of Igbo and the spirit of Biafra. What's your take on it?
Incidentally, I'm one of those who were incensed. That is the highest degree of offense is what P2B has committed by going to congratulate the Yakubu Gowon who presided over the genocide that took, by Gowon's own account, 5 million. He said that Gowon said in public, so very offensive. And I'm sure P2B himself will have seen the umbrage of the Igbo globally about that. It will have been a gaffe. But when the explanation he then tried to give after the initial tweet was even a lot more infuriating. P2B has urinated on the grave of those 5 million Easterners that were killed in that genocide. P2B is insulting the collective intelligence of the Igbo just because of some narrow pursuit, personal pursuit. P2B wants to be president of Nigeria that does not exist. And the matter is made even far worse by the fact that the constitution that has rendered us slaves in our homeland and rendered the rest of indigenous Nigerians slaves in the hands of the caliphate that imposed it by brigandage. Peter Obi started his campaign, his presidential campaign in 2000 and, just ahead of this 2023 presidential election. He started his campaign by saying that the constitution of Nigeria is not the problem. That constitution was imposed as a victory charter from that war of genocide by the very Murtala Mohammed who initiated the genocide 29th July 1966. I want us to connect it to see the gravity of what has been done, because a demand will be made on P2B to apologize to the Igbo worldwide. And the person speaking is a survivor from that genocide. At the time the war ended, I was 3 years old. I wasn't born the day the coup of January 1966 happened. I wasn't yet born. I wasn't yet born the day the counter coup of Murtala Mohammed and Yakubu Gowon and co happened. And that would tell you, I was born in the middle of October that followed that counter coup in July. And so, if you heard about the Biafran children that died of starvation and kwashoko, the person speaking with you, but for the grace of God, was in the heart and heat of it all through. And living with it, I'm therefore not telling you what somebody told me. I couldn't have been old enough to see how it all happened, but I was impacted enough to begin to ask questions of those who, participated. I was privileged to have how will I even describe Ojukwo's participation in the process. I'm sure many in Enugu and all over Nigeria remember that when it became Pronaco, the process that has become known as now, when it became Pronaco, Ojukwu chaired the plenary sessions of Pronaco in Enugu. When we finished with Pronaco, Ojukwu was one of my plaintiffs in the suit challenging the legitimacy of the 1999 Constitution. What is 1999 Constitution? It was the carryover of 1979 Constitution. How did we come about the 1979 Constitution? Murtala Mohammed commissioned the draft in 1975 when he came to the point where they had to chop away the Gowon that they had put in front without any real powers of his own. It was the caliphate that was moving, and Murtala Mohammed was the military head of the head of the military wing of that caliphate that executed that genocide. And so the Gowon that oversaw it and became the one who, if one person is known to the world as having presided over that genocide, it is Yakubu Gowon. If Peter Obi was some kind of youth, you could ignore him, but he's not. I'm sure and I'm certain that he's a bit older than myself, and he's not a stranger to the things that have happened, particularly the question of the constitutional arrangements. If these things were things of the past, things that have gone away, of course we will say, let's forgive and forget and move on. But it hasn't gone nowhere. It's in fact worse. That war that many thought ended in 1970 did not end in 1970. It was continued unabated. It only moved to the economic front. And what do I mean by that? The question of you encircled a people for 3 years for no reason, having killed them for 1 year. The pogroms, the killings that began July 29th, the night Hiroshi was killed, and the Igbo officers that went into town, all over the north and elsewhere, some in Lagos. That killing had carried on at the time Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon had emerged as the head of the illicit federal military government they declared at the time. It didn't stop. August, September, October, throughout the balance of 1966, it was in waves and waves. Eventually, General Ankara had to intervene, and they all, because they couldn't find a place to meet inside Nigeria, the Federation of Nigeria had collapsed. And then they went to Accra in Aburi and had these discussions that put all the issues on the table. The grief that is the worst, the worsening part, the worst part of that entire grief is that at night, one genocide general, Yakubu Gowon, is still telling the same lies that led to that war. And the person speaking now has had the privilege of telling him to his face at the Institute of International Affairs in Lagos. The day Ishekiri Heritage Book was being launched, he was chairing, that is Gowon, and this same set of lies about how Ojukwu was the problem. Emeka did not, he was saying, Emeka will not listen to anybody. Just lies. We are building a country that is collapsing. I'm sure you've seen the video from UK, where they were now the host of the rest of the world, that Nigeria has come to where it has in fact broken down. And with a government of what you will see like a drunken sailors on a ship that is sinking. And so, when you take it from how the commotion began, how it became war, how it went after the war, what began to happen, you seize the currency, you bomb these people for 3 years, killing this number of people. You lock them in land, air, and sea for those 3 years, blockade. The war was called off because of the election that happened in America in 1968. You then started by seizing their currency. You said they should bring their money to be changed. For no fault of theirs in all this, a few officers, middle rank officers, tried to intervene in what the politicians were doing. They did not get to government house. And then you turn around and say, all the Igbo, they agreed to go and behead one person. And so you seized their money and gave £20 per account held before the war. Before that's as at 65, that was the benchmark, not even £20 per head. And so you had communities in which only 1 or 2 persons who lived in the township had accounts. And then people contributed, people brought all their money, some millions, some thousands, some hundreds of thousands, to give to those who had accounts that they could go, to use to convert the money. Most of those people from those communities were actually killed by their own people because there was no announcement as to the fact that the money was going to be confiscated. That money had value to the end of the war, the very last day. Only like it was just like this naira that in the morning you had one rate, at night it could be another rate. That was the only thing that happened. But if there was an intention to give any part of, even if you say it is 200 pounds to one, then there will be some will get hundreds of it, some get thousands of it, some might even get millions of it. Whatever they decide to do to moderate will be different. You seize this money, warehoused it. That was the money that was used to prosecute the indigenization decrees, by which people from other parts of the country, particularly the parts from where the economic managers of the time came, brought over the economic assets that the companies and the enterprises owned by the Igbo. Then the matter of abandoned property never reversed to this date. Never reversed to this date. Then you went from there to begin to do things, the glass ceilings were now set up. The structure of the one that has now become built in circle, in which all the lands abutting the Atlantic Ocean became river state. All the lands abutting Cameroonian border became Southeastern state. Southeastern state is the current Akwa Ibom and Cross River. River state of the time is the current Rivers and Bayelsa, all in attempt to lock down the Igbo East. Nigeria went ahead, just in that desperation, to kill the Igbo, to strangulate the Igbo. Look at this, and look at what is going on in their so-called southeast of today. All designed to be so. Otherwise, nobody can convince me that one riffraff will sit in one corner of Finland and it becomes impossible for Nigeria to know what to do. Or that someone will now be reason everybody is helpless. It is the people that were carrying out the genocide who could not finish the business in 1970 that are still presiding over what is going on in the place.
All right.
How did we arrive at the 36 states? Okay. How did we arrive at the local government, the 7 local government areas that have made Igbo the minority that will not even have any voice to lay a complaint? They refer to the exclusive list.
Yes.
How did the assets that belong to Igbo, to the regions of the time?
We will get back to all that. But let me simply ask you, when you think that General Gowon needs to apologize for the war that happened
every day from 1970, every day from January of 1970, Yakubu Gowon was in depth of that apology. He was, even this day, he's still alive now, thank goodness. God kept, on the day I had to challenge him on this matter. I had to stop him in the middle of his speech. He was on his speech, he was speaking. And then, because he lied again, I disrupted his speech and told him to his face that I'm happy that God has kept him alive to witness the collapse of that Nigeria that he and his co-motherers built on the foundation of Igbo blood, and that he will be alive to witness the burial ceremony of that the event collapse. Let anybody who can investigate it. Of course, he had his all those permanent secretaries, those super permanent secretaries of the time, the Shekiri ones among them, who were present at that. Let everybody find out whether the day Ishekiri launched their heritage book at the Institute of International Affairs in Victoria Land, Lagos, whether Tony Nnadi did not disrupt Yakubu Gowon in the midst of his false presentation, in the midst of his lies. So that's how it has come to where he remains unapologetic. The constitution they imposed as victory charter from that war is now tormenting everybody to death. Ijo is dying, Yoruba is dying, Middleburg, his own Middleburg is being decapitated. Everything is upside down. The development that was happening and happening very well in the eastern region of Emma, in the western region of Awolowo, in the northern region of Ahmadu Bello. How did we lose that federation? Oh yes, it's a Ironsi that changed everything. No, Ironsi was decree number 34 of 1966 did not touch the structure of the Federation of Nigeria. Everything you are told in Nigeria is a lie. When you look around, you see the evidence of what happened. You then begin to imagine the intention for building everything on falsehood. Look at how that Nigeria has become. 230 million people with no direction, selling 3 million barrels of crude oil, and a bunch of I don't even have the kind of word that could describe them, sitting in Abuja, pretending they have a country. You put my signature on a document I did not make, that now becomes the basis of confiscating my land and my sovereignty and conscripting me into a union of death that Nigeria has become unitary Nigeria. Caveat, I enter a caveat. The Nigeria we are complaining about is the unitary Nigeria defined by this unitary constitution of 1999. Nigeria, the Federation, died in 1966 and was buried in 1967. On the 27th of May, 1967, the day Yakubu Gowon, by decree number 14, fractured the 4 regions that were federating into 12 states. That was the day they buried that Federation of Nigeria as agreed in Lancaster House. Everything they had done since that time, all the federal governments of that time have been illicit to this day. And when people like us who commit this number of years, 25 from 1999, 25 years, with all of what went on, the very people think we are so incensed with what Peter Obi has done. Does Peter Obi know about this matter more than Ojukwu? Yes, Ojukwu will receive Gowon in his residence. You know, they were two old men at the time. But I had the privilege of dealing with the principal actors on the two sides of that war. Remember, Enohoro, who was the chief convener of the Chronicle, was the spokesman of the federal government throughout that war. Many do not know that Enohoro was a schoolmate to the then British Prime Minister, so they relied on him. Enohoro spent the last 7 years of his life trying to work out with us how to resolve the issues that arose from that time. That is what has become NINAS, from when it was Chronicle to when it became MNN, that went to court in 2007. It fell on me to file that suit. Does Peter Obi know more about this matter than Ojukwu that became one of my plaintiffs in that suit, challenging the legitimacy of the 1999 Constitution? Does Peter Obi know more about this matter than Sisi Ono, the father of Bianca Ono, that was one of my plaintiffs? These are men, these are patriots that gave everything to salvage the people, their own people. But why would somebody from that territory be so insensitive for whatever pursuit to now, whether he's trying to present himself as acceptable, as approved by the enforcers of unitary Nigeria, the one called One Nigeria.
Great. All right, Mr. Nadi, we will take a break. When we return from that break, we'll find out exactly how we can find closure to the issues around the Nigeria-Biafra war. The question will be, can the wounds ever heal? And if yes, how? That's when we'll come back. Stay with us.
Thank you.
And TV, it's a program that x-rays the political, social, and economic developments around us. My name is Alex Obodo, and I still have on the line joining me graciously from Lagos, Tony Nadi Esquire, is the Secretary General of NINAS, and of course, he's been providing perspectives on the subject matter tonight. So, Mr. Nadi, is it possible to have some closure to the issues around the Nigeria-Biafra war? Will the wounds ever heal? Will the wounds ever heal? What should be done to assuage Igbo for what has happened between 1967 to 1970 and the things that happened afterwards? The abandoned property and every other thing that happened, and confiscation of their money.
The thing that needs to happen is that the truth has to be told, and then the remediation which NINAS has placed on the table. NINAS being Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, which encapsulates, involve all the indigenous nationalities across Nigeria. The only ones who are not indigenous, we all know. They are the ones killing in Abeokuta, killing in Bobo, killing in Panching and elsewhere, in Boni and Port Harcourt, in Warri and Ughelli. The ones who do not own in terms of ancestral land any square inch of the territory the world knows as Nigeria, the Fulani. The problem is that it began with the British that brought them in to hold their empire for permanent control. And back to your question of what do? We have spent, and when I say we, all of those who convened and prosecuted the conference, the sovereign conference of the owners of Nigeria, the nationalities that constitute Nigeria, which you all saw, heard of as a Chronicle, 164 ethnic delegations that sat around in plenary in discussion for 2 years, sitting in Lagos, sitting in Port Harcourt, sitting in Enugu, sitting in Jos, sitting in Kano, and coming to conclude in Lagos, with a delegate from Katsina moving the motion for the adoption of the finished product that will have taken Nigeria back to being a federation in 2006. And so the powers that the ones who inflicted this damage, Olusegun Obasanjo was president at the time. His response to this effort to get the people to sit around the table, put all the issues on the table, and put aside all of the things to explain that everybody, that reconciliation that is based on everybody now seeing a clearer picture of what went wrong. I'm sure you remember when the US evacuated from Abuja not long ago in the time of Buhari, that this genocide general called IBM Haruna came on national TV to say that it was foreigners that turned the altercations into war. Yes, BBC and the British turned what the soldiers, what the five majors, what the majors had done, a coup that they didn't get to government house, they didn't get to power. And then how did it all become war? I've had the privilege of listening in closed door. There's nobody alive in Nigeria today that has spent more time with the actors in that whole episode. The day Ojukwu was buried in Nnewi, it was not by accident that it fell on me to act the role of like an informal chief mourner. The day Jonathan came to preside over that farewell ceremony in Nnewi, it was because Ojukwu was in the inner workings of this reconciliation process that had become Nina's. Let us accept what happened and stop lying and stop falsehood and stop propaganda. Let us then accept that the constitution imposed as victory charter from that war cannot remain basis of the union. Let us then proceed to how we submit our sovereignty into one political union, like Bola Ige was always talking about, and the terms of being in that political union. Those are the two things that will have to happen. And the beginning of it is to decommission this Constitution of Death, the 1999 Constitution. And how do you decommission? We have had these meetings of all the nationalities. They all know what they want for themselves. Everybody wants a union of sanctity of life. Everybody wants a union of equality of men. We then begin to talk about all the other equity. The structure that will bring us back to being a federation, the structure and the terms of union that will put us in charge of our affairs, our local affairs. And then we unionize with our sovereignties in our hand, the same way Germany and France and Portugal are doing European Union. But what do we have? The union that the federation that we agreed upon got toppled, and then the carcass, was kept in place by force of arms, and decrees were being made by which all the economic assets of this federating unit became the property, exclusive property of that illicit federal government. We can't have a federal government if we don't have a federation. And those who are swearing to defend and uphold that constitution, all the political actors, political parties, all the people who drag people to election after election under that constitution that we say, it can't lead us anywhere. You had it on the floor of the Senate when Senator Adeyeye said, this is the problem. We can't go nowhere with it. You had it from all the other places. Shame on the lawyers in Nigeria that it took an Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala that is not known to be a lawyer to come to tell the Nigerian Bar Association that the problem with the economy that is in free fall is the social contract that is unsettled. For the mediocres that are now senior advocates and professors of law, let me interpret Ngozi Okonjo to you. Social contract is the constitution. You had when things the Mogalo said on Arise TV that The problem with the economy is the constitutional infrastructure upon which we are building that economy. What is the solution? Let us go and rework the constitutional basis of Nigeria. You had when Serake Dixon, senator, that was governor in Bayelsa, you had him saying the same thing, that we are living in a fraud. The constitution is a fraud that has made everything impossible for those who should have been building that Nigeria. The Nigeria you have now is a disputed project. If you want to know the nature of that dispute, you go to the preamble to that constitution that lies that we the people, that is we the constituent component, the sovereign, the owners of the sovereign, we the Ogoni, we the Igbo, we the Yoruba, we the chief, have solemnly and firmly resolved to live in unity as indivisible and indissoluble. That is falsehood, that is self-evident, because no meeting was called. How did we arrive at the constitution? Because he then said, he went on to say that we do hereby make everybody accept the following constitution. I'm telling you what is wrong with Nigeria, and if we are not going to solve it together, those who are choking from the atrocities of unitary Nigeria are going to take unilateral actions, and it is called self-determination. Sovereignty is inalienable. It doesn't depend on whether you agree with me or you don't, for me to be the owner of my land in my state. And the remedy that is available to all of those who are choking in Nigeria, whether they are being beheaded in the Middle Belt, or the economic assets have been taken in the Ido land, or they are being chased around the Yoruba land. You saw when they beheaded the king, even with the Yoruba president called Bola Tinubu. And so the problem that we have to solve now is to go back to those three falsehoods by going to a transition immediately. Every day we postpone that transition to go and solve this problem. You have Nigeria is like a disputed construction site where you have more than 75%. Look at the map behind me so that I can understand what I'm talking about. You have more than 75%, and with the Hausa that is now speaking up for themselves, because they're also indigenous people, Hausa and Kanuri. They own the land, but the Fulani jumped into the space and have turned it into hell for them. But they now see that if that constitution is brought down, they will be the one discussing how that portion of Nigeria will be part of any union that may emerge, whether as a proper federation or a confederation or the emergence of independent units of successor sovereign states. Those are the things that can happen, but it will be determined by referendum. And we are saying Ninas has placed on the table since December 16, 2020, something that could solve this problem. A 5-point proposition that demands that, let us use the word propose, until the peoples of Nigeria join in that demand, it becomes their demand. But Ninas did propose that we acknowledge that this bad arrangement, this constitution that was imposed by brigandage, is not working for anybody and has become the reason for all the agitations going on in the land, all the failures and dysfunctions of Nigeria flowing from that constitution. Second, we propose that a commitment to decommission that constitution be made. We propose that elections that are mandated by that constitution be suspended forthwith. We've had 7 elections since 1999. Where has it taken us? Because that constitution is the guarantee for the corruption we see. It's the guarantee for the impunity we see. It's the guarantee for the infrastructural decay we see. It's the guarantee for the electoral malfeasances we see. And so all of those who are saying they're going to fix Nigeria on one hand, and they're telling the constitution on the other hand, both the ones who want to fight corruption and the ones who want to build it the other.
Okay, I want to get clarity on something, and that's exactly, you said you have a proposal on the table. I wanted to know which table that proposal is on. You've been on this program a few times in the past, and I keep asking, who have you given this proposal? And I want to know who is in the know about this proposal you are referring to. And how, again, because we'll have about 6 minutes to go, so you can answer them together within 6 minutes. The Southeast, a lot of people in the Southeast are still traumatized about what has happened during the war and the treatment they've been receiving since afterwards. Do you think that these can change?
If we decide to solve this problem, it will take 90 days from the work that has been done. If it is not enough for the very people that fought for the independence, and Nohoro was at the center of it, and all of those who were still alive at the time we began to think of what else to do, join. If it's not enough that 164 ethnic delegations would meet in the manner we met and came out with a draft, Obasanjo went on national TV to say that it will amount to treason if we called a meeting of the owners of Nigeria. Of course, we defied him and carried on. And then at the end of the day, we had a draft that came out. All the groups that were carrying arms at the time, including Sani Dokubo's the Niger Delta Volunteer Force and the OPC of Gani Adams and Wazirike's Maso, we persuaded them to put their guns aside. Something the government could not achieve in that period. They were chasing themselves all over the place until we calmed things down for those 2 years. Not one shot was fired in agitation. And then we had this draft. We then went to court to say, let us, if a Nohoro will be plaintiff in such a suit, in a federal high court of Nigeria, in which the Attorney General of Nigeria joined the issues with us, he came to court to respond on behalf of the federal government, that was the president and the managers of National Assembly, speakers, Senate president. And so we formally placed these demands on the table, going as far as the court, in which Attorney General came on behalf of the federal government. We said this constitution is a fraud that has to be wound down, that has to be terminated. We must do what South Africa did with apartheid constitution in 1990, when an announcement was made by the government of the Klerk, acknowledging that apartheid constitution could not carry their society any further, committing to suspending foreign national elections under that constitution, going into the discussion that was by the sovereign owners of the sovereignty confiscated into that Union of South Africa. For the first time, the blacks were on the table to discuss what will happen with their sovereignty that will become Union of South Africa. And then from there, they rolled out, they agreed on all kinds of things, made constitution out of it before they began to go to election. What do we have today? What Ninas did was, through all these processes, coming out in December of 2020 to place a formal proposition before the country, and that if we had 128 signatories, including generals, including a former vice president, the leaderships of the regional, social political associations across Nigeria, heads of Afenifere and all such groups, Pandep and all such groups, Ohaneze and all such groups. John Nyangodo was Ohaneze President General at the time of that, was the #1 signatory in that 40 from the east, 40 from each of the other places, the middle belt. And all of Jonathan has his name on that list from that part. So you had 128, signatory people identify who have been in government at the highest level. And we put it out, it's published unedited in Guardian newspaper. Formal copies, of course, was submitted to the government of the time. And the one who is president today, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was part of the beginning of this entire thing. He came from Nordico to become governor in Lagos State. And there was no time he was left outside what was going on. Buhari, that became president before him, was one of the Fulani delegates to Pronaco. He's still alive. Syed Abubakar, that is now Sultan in Sokoto, he was in the army at the time before he became Sultan. He was part of the Fulani delegation that came to. So there was no part of the country that was left out. And we finished all these processes and placed the plan on the table, informed the international community. The matter was addressed to the UN Security Council, because in no time, people will be calling for peacekeeping and separation of aid. We say, we have come of age. These are the combatants on the two sides of the war had found the common sense, the presence of mind, to call all the sides, the winners and the losers, the big and the small. And we have all agreed on what we need to do. But a few brigands cling onto that constitution as title deed to now sit in one corner of Abuja dictating to everybody. They imagine that our sovereignty is now with them. Especially the National Assembly that is talking about amendment of constitution every day. And we say, we've not made any constitution. The proof of it is printed in the document, decree number 24 of Asalam Abaka. We didn't make any constitution. We have suffered for 25 years under it. And then every 4 years, some hooligans will come out, invite other people to election under a constitution that guarantees their death. They know that the young people don't know. And so they invite them to go and get PVC. At the end of the day, their lives will just be worsened. So that proposition is still there. Anybody who wants to look at it, because we presented it to government, we presented it to international stakeholders in Nigeria, all the way to Washington and New York. And you saw when in 2021 we went to tell Buhari that was pretending to be president of Nigeria that does not exist at the UN General Assembly session. For 2 weeks we were there.
Okay.
Just bringing it to the knowledge of those who may be caught in the middle.
Time now. Thank you, Mr. Nadi. We appreciate your analysis and perspective on this. It's an ongoing conversation. I will invite you back in a few short
Just before I drop out, so
okay.
One moment. I appeal to P2B in the name of everything he holds dear, to take down that tweet he made, to apologize to the Igbo worldwide. Otherwise, the Igbo will resort to their traditional means. He could be excommunicated from everything for doing the sacrilege he has done by saying that the constitution that holds us down into slavery is not the problem with Nigeria. And then going to apologize, going to congratulate the people that they committed that genocide and was not apologized to date. It will do him good to do it before other decisions are taken concerning that insult.
Okay. Thank you so much.